Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Today we are going to continue in Shittas Rashi. Let us remind ourselves. I hope we will be able today to finish. We can never finish. Rashi can never be finished. But we will medayik. Let's remind ourselves. Let's go back, especially for Rabbi Akiva. It's wonderful that you're joining us. We'll go back to the Gemara in Sanhedrin in base, page 1. Right? Second source. Rav Huna says that Roidef ein tzorich hasra. Rather, Rav Huna says that a cotton can be a Roidef. A cotton can qualify as a Roidef, and therefore would be Nitan Hatzila B'nafshay. He would forfeit his life. Says the Gemara. We obviously can see from here by implication that a Roidef does not require. There's no threshold of cognizance of kavana, because a cotton is not able to. So kosova, says the Gemara Alma, you see a Roidef obviously doesn't need hasra. Okay, fair enough. Then Rav Chisda challenges Rav Huna halacha from the Mishnah in Arles, which we learnt, which is further down in the page, which is, interestingly, why he challenges him from the Sefer, not from the Reisha. But Yotza Reisha, let's remind ourselves, the first part of the Mishnah is that a woman who is Maksha Leiled and the unborn fetus is challenging the viability of the mother's life, then we have no compunction. Very brutal, quite technical, quite gruesome, the way the Mishnah puts it. The midwife or the doctor, whoever it is, puts their hand in, and say, Ever. But it's fascinating. It's actually quite... Chazal were not, of course, callous. There's a reason why it's put in that language. Chazal are very well aware of the sensitivities of people, of mothers, fathers, but they use very cold, if I can say. That was done for a reason. It's to point out that this is technical. This is technical. And therefore, you cut it up limb by limb and bring out the fetus limb by limb. However, Yotza Roshai, and this is what Rav Chisda asks Rav Huna, Yotza Roshai ein noigin boy. Again, fascinating language. In the negative, couched in negative language. Ein noigin boy. He now becomes an untouchable. Why? Asks Rav Chisda challenges Rav Huna the obvious question. V'amai, why not? He's a rider. Who has instigated this situation where the mother's life is in danger? It is clearly the fetus. It's because she's pregnant. It's because there's a complication going on over here. The fetus, willfully or unwillfully, but it doesn't matter. According to you, Rav Huna, it makes no difference whether we can establish intent. Intent isn't needed as a threshold, as a criteria for assuming the halachic persona, the identity of a roidef. That's your whole position, Rav Huna. You see over here, not true. You see over here that he's we can't touch him. Why not? He's a roidef according to you. The Gemara's answer is we have to see the Gemara's answer as well. We'll come to the Gemara's answer in a minute. And we were medayik last week. I want to say this for Rabbi Akiva, a beautiful one-word Rashi. A one-word Rashi, which is an oilam, it's mamash velt. And it'll become even more compelling when we see tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, where we begin to address the Rambam. Shittas Rambam. But let's have a look at the Rashi over here. Yotza Roshai says Rashi, Isha HaMaksha Leiled, he gives us the context. The reason why it's underlined in the notes here is because Lav Nefesh, who? Lav Nefesh, it couldn't be much clearer. It does not qualify as an independent Nefesh. Interesting language, by the way. We were medayik the word Nefesh, because in the Pasuk, in last week's parasha, was Ha'odam Ba'odam. The terminology is used is Odam. The Rambam, if you remember, bottom of page 3, the Rambam says, Ben Noach Shehorag Nefesh is liable. It is murder. So the Rambam very precisely uses this language of Nefesh. The Pasuk says it's an Odam. Rashi over here tells us in Lav Nefeshu. It's not a Nefesh. Okay? It's not a Nefesh. So we see Rashi's opinion. And that, by the way, remains Rashi's opinion. Even though this is the question of the Gemara. Right? Just to bring you back in. Remember, Rav Huna said that a child can be a roidef. So we don't need him to establish intent, clearly. Ask the Gemara from the Mishnah Olos that once the child is born, Ein Noigim, we don't touch him because Ein Doichin Nefesh Mipnei Nefesh. Again, there's the language. Now he becomes a Nefesh. Ooh, now you've got Nefesh. Now you have a, Kramas versus Krama. Now you have Nefesh. Yeah, nobody knows what I'm talking about. Okay, now you have Nefesh Mipnei Nefesh. With Rashi, it's brilliant because that is what's happened now. It's become a nefesh. All of a sudden, you have a nefesh mipnei nefesh because beforehand says Rashi very clearly, lav nefeshu.
Rambam argues with that.
Sorry,
the Rambam's different way of being.
We're going to see tomorrow. The Rambam's the whole. Well, more in the teretz, but for the moment, the question seems to be pretty straightforward. So now that is a challenge to Rav Huna. Why, when Yotza Roshai, all of a sudden he becomes untouchable? Why? He's a Raiduf. According to you, Rav Huna, it's a clear-cut and dried case of Raiduf. The fetus is a Raiduf. Just cut him up. Do whatever you need to do. Answers the Gemara. Mishamaya Koradfala. Here it's different. Here it is different. Rav Huna is right. If it was a classic case of Raiduf, of course, an Uber, as much as a kid under bar mitzvah can qualify as a Raiduf in theory. But over here it's different. Do you know why? Because Mishmaya Korad Fila. Now, I suggest there are two ways of translating that phrase in the Gemara. Do you remember what we did right at the end last week?
Yeah, we said it's like a Rodef Mina Shamayim, saying it's not that he chose to, or...
Keep going, keep going.
We said...
I was Madaika, one word.
No, Shamayim is the Rodef.
That's one way of learning it.
Yeah.
Mishamaya Koratvila. Shamayim is the Raiduf. It could be the agency.
Yeah.
Agency, to use the correct academic term would be. Agency is established via the Uber. But it's not only he doesn't have intent. He ain't doing nothing. With a 10-year-old who picks up an Uzi and says, I'm going to kill you, he may not have full cognizance and a culpability and understand the context of what killing somebody means and that it's final, blah, blah, blah.
But
but there is a level of intent. It might not be enough for the threshold of Chazal. But here it's different. Says Rashi, Mishamaya korod for lo le'imei. That's what she's saying. Le'imei, to his mother. What do you mean? We know there is a mother. We know that what on earth is Rashi saying? One word Rashi, le'imei, to his mother. Rashi is making it personal. What's going on? The text says Rashi is saying he is the Raiduf. The Uber is the Raiduf. No question. The Uber is the Raiduf. But Shamayim have forced his hand to be Merodef, his mother. You could keep him out of the loop. Theoretically, from a logical, this is just Lomdus, I think. We'll see.
It's pretty dramatic.
Very dramatic. Yeah. But ask yourself, as always, Rabbi Sai, the point here is we're not just learning, as you know, we're not just learning technicalities, we're not just so that you walk away with your DS, which I hope you will do, but also this is about how does one learn? And when I saw that one Rashi, I scratched my beard and said, what on earth is going on? Why does Rashi need to say that? Why does Rashi need to say anything? Because, of course, there are two ways of learning the Gemara. Who is the Raiduf here? Is there a Raiduf? It could be you can just keep the kid out. Shamayim could have, it's a bit like Shamayim, a piece of the roof could have fallen off and crushed the mother. Why? This is personal. Shamayim korad for lei, Mishraim korad for law. You see, there is another way, as we're going to see in Rambam. I'll give the game away. I can't hold myself back. It could be there are mutual Raidufim here. Could be they're being Raiduf each other.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we're going to see in the Rambam. There's another way of looking at it. V'zehu tivon shalaylam is the famous formulation of the Rambam. None of this. Rashi says there is one Raiduf over here. That is the kid. The kid is being Raiduf le'imei, his mother. The kid is being Raiduf, the Uber is being Raiduf his mother, but he's not a classic Raiduf because his hand was forced. His hand was forced. He had no agency at all. Not even the agency of a 5-year-old or of a 7-year-old. There's nothing. Okay? That was just beautiful, by the way. That diuk in that one word Rashi. Al kol ponim. This is kind of where we were at. Although we're going to go back to Tosafos in a minute. If you remember, Tosafos on page 2. So where we are at is that we seem to have a scenario where We've established via the Gemara in Sanhedrin that, and is paskened in the Rambam at the bottom of page 3, as we saw, that a ben noyach, it's a capital offense. It is murder for a ben noyach to abort a fetus, a viable fetus. Yes, it is shefich dam ha'odam ba'odam. The Gemara also says there is nothing lekamidi. There is nothing which a Gentile is forbidden to do and a Yid is permitted to do. On that, Tosfos, we saw on page 2, Tosfos in Sanhedrin Nuntes challenges that from 2 places. And we were kind of in the middle of this. And I think we'll go back, because we distracted slightly. Do you remember? You're back with the track now, yeah? This is where we're at. Let's learn that Tosfos. And I'd also like to say perhaps a little bit of understanding of that Tosfos. Took me a while to figure it out a little bit. I think I've got it clear. But by all means, as I always say, it's not a monologue, yeah? You challenge, you jump in, you challenge me, yeah? Mm-hmm. So let's have a look. The first point Tosfos makes, and you got this if I remember last time. Yeah. Very good. Gabby challenged me immediately. The minute I said there's nothing that a Gentile is not allowed to do, a Jew is allowed to do, you said to me, Shabbos. That was great. That was your immediate response. Quite right. No, akum sheshavas chayiv misa. A Gentile's not allowed to keep Shabbos. A Jew has to keep Shabbos. And remember the answer of Tosfos, who remembers?
It was a
mitzvah.
Yeah.
Mitzvah shani. So that's Tosfos' first point. Let's go back again. With the top of page 2, left-hand column, Tosfos. Leka mida deli Yisrael shari. Zogt the heilige Tosfos. Bedovashu mitzvah li Yisrael lo yomri l'nachi. Point number 1. Anything, when the Gemara makes this halachic principle, this axiom, that there is nothing which a Gentile is not allowed to do, which a Yid is allowed to do, the operative words here are... What are the operative words in that phrase, in that sentence? Shori. Allowed versus nicht erlaubt. Those are the operative words. Aber etwas was ist pflichtig. That's what I'm talking about. So point number 1 in Tosfos. And the reason I'm repeating it, giveaway, because it's going to become relevant later in Tosfos as well. B'davar shehu mitzvah l'Yisrael lo yomrin on hochi. Da'akum sheshavas chayiv l'Yisrael mitzvah. Then Tosfos goes a little bit of a... Okay, we mentioned this very briefly. I'm not going to go into it. Afagav sheni b'Shabbos there's no mitzvah. On Monday there's no mitzvah. But okay, mikol mokim yesh Allah mitzvah shutah Shabbos. Fine. Then his second challenge, and this is the one that really interests us more. What about abortion? Because ala ubrim de'oived kechavim chayev v'Yisrael potur. Now, important words here Tosfos uses in his question. And I'm going to challenge you again. Test your memory from last week. Says Tosfos, I have a direct challenge to this axiom in the Gemara. And that is abortion. Because for a Gentile, a ben noach, we know it is forbidden. And for a Jew, it is potur. Interesting word, potur. Challenge, how do we know for a Jew it's potter? Bring me a source that for a Jew it's potter. Give me a makayr. Very good. Shkayach. Well done. The Mishnah Nida. Tinok ben yoyim echad, ha'hoyer goy chayev. Just below that. Just below the Tosfos, the one-liner. We did it last week. Oh, yeah. The Mishnah in Nida, which is very important because we're going to be learning the Tosfos on it shortly. Yeah? So the Mishnah, the Mishnah says, Tinok ben yoyim echad, it becomes his own halachic identity vis-a-vis nachalo, and that we're not going to go into. There's a side sugya here which I'm going to leave out. But the key point is v'hahoyer goy chayev. Says the Ramban Mefurish. In case you needed, we don't really need it, but the Ramban says it Mefurish. It's not on these sheets. I showed it to you on the other sheets last week, if you remember. Chedushay Ramban al Atar in Nida, who says that. What do you see from this Mishnah? Very good, Kobe. That clearly, obviously, you're only chayev. It only becomes a capital offense. It only becomes infanticide. It only becomes murder when he's 1 day old. The implication clearly being for a Yisrael, if he's still inside, lav nefeshu. This would appear to go along with who? With Shittas? Rashi. Rashi's like the Mishnah. Lav nefeshu. Lav nefeshu. You could say it's a Mishnah. It's a Mefurish Mishnah, right? So we have established a Gemara that says clearly, Paskin, that for a Ben Noach, abortion is a capital offense. It's murder. It's called a nefesh. We've established via a Mishnah, and very clearly, even more clearly in Rashi, because it's only by implication from the Mishnah, that for the same thing for a Jew is
Pater.
Good.
But
Good. He says what is it?
It doesn't say in the Mishnah that he's explicitly Pater. It just says that.
Well,
I'm saying.
no, I'm not going to buy that. Go on.
But I mean, if it says.
It says Tinuk ben Yom Echad.
Yeah.
Hahoyer goy chayav. What's the implication? Correct. The implication is
before the first day, it's potter.
correct.
Right. That's the implication. Yeah.
Absolutely. And by the way, I showed you last week.
So we could also say the implication could be also one is chayv misa, the other one is chayv something else.
Good. That's Tosa's answer. Well done. Very good. So you don't need me. You basically between you you've got the Tosas. Awesome. That's exactly good. That's good thinking. Exactly. And that's going to be Tosas's answer. But at least we got the question clear.
Yeah.
So seems to be Nochamo. This is a direct challenge to the principle of the Gemara. Abortion would appear to be a direct challenge, and we know where he gets it from. So let's do it inside. And the answer is going to be exactly like you said, although it raises as many questions as it answers, because the answer leaves unanswered. What does it leave unanswered? Well, let's do it. Go on.
Why is there misa for the Noah?
No, this is pasuk. Shefer tama odam ba'odam. You know what? Let's do it inside, and then I'll try and tease it out of you then.
Okay.
Weiter. V'ala obrim frag teises. V'ala obrim David kechavim chayv Yisrael Potter. So that's our question. That's the challenge. I have found something which is a direct contradiction to this halachic principle. And for Tosus, as we say in the Olam Yeshivas, answers Tosus antwortet. Well, that's where it comes from. Enfet Tosus, as we say in Yiddish. Enfet Tosus, Afal gab de Potter, Mikol Mokoim lo shari. Oh, what's the translation? It's Potter. Potter meaning, as you said quite rightly, it's not going to be a capital offense. Mikol Mokoim, nevertheless, lo shari. What's the translation? Lo shari? It's not allowed. That's nicht erlaubt. Now, So what's the problem with that answer? If you were a jurist, if you were a halachist, you are a legal person. So
they should have written one is chayv this, one is chayv that.
Okay, that's it. It's vague. What do you mean? First of all, lo shari. Why not? So under what rubric, if I were to be technical, under which halacha am I going to charge them? And what exactly is the offense? And therefore, when I know what the offence is, I will then be able to know what the punishment is. Okay, so it's not off with his head, like Alice in Wonderland. But then what is it? So what is it? You get a slap on the wrist? Do you get a fine? So what? You can't do this. As a Talmudist, you can't do this. You can't just say, Lo shari. Why not? My first question is going to be, why not? If it's not under that, then under what? And I'm only raising this because these are stuff it'll all come out in the wash. Don't worry, we're going to see at least 2 pshatim today as to what it might be. Is it d'Rabbanon? Okay, if you want to be more londish. Is it d'Rabbanon? Is it d'Oraisa? Is it a form of murder? What is it? For a Jew. Well, Tosfos is saying for a Jew, for a Ben Noach, we know what it is. It's Shefech Dama Odom Ba'odom. The question is, what is it for a Jew?
Rabbi, will there come up a differentiation, maybe, I thought, as a hypothesis between Dinei Shammai and Dinei Adam?
Good.
There's they have like a metaphysical, but like
okay, I like your thinking. I have a vague memory of something which will come on a little bit later down the line, after we've learned Reb Chaim, maybe. Okay?
Because that could kind of...
Yes, yeah. Lo shari. It's a very imprecise... All I'm pointing out is a slightly imprecise language, and we need to ask ourselves, so...
Is Lechem Midam the Yisrael Shari like Gechavim Aser Mekar?
Oh, very good. Very good. So that itself, that's going to come a lot later down the line. The Tzitz Eliezer discusses whether this concept... you see what Rabbi Akiva's done? He's done a clever thing. Gone back to the source. This is all based off this principle. Lekamidi, there is nothing which a Gentile would be forbidden, and I think, where does that itself come from?
Oh, okay.
Is that just a logic? Is it Yitziva? What's the lashon? Yitziva like to take kehenes kapuntakis or Yitziva b'shlai b'giyur Yitziva b'ara b'giyur b'shlai shmaya. Is this on the basis? Is this a logic? Is it a so that itself? We will much later down the line. I think the Tzitz Eliezer, and I think there's a Chavas Yoyer about it. I saw in my ruminations. I've got all of this on this topic, by the way. So there's a lot more to go. This was our first topic. And this is this one. I'm having a lot of fun. So this is where we're at. But it's not mutter. So big question mark. We will still look at this today, Mitzvah Hashem. See, if Tosfos also is saying it's not a nefesh. So it's not a nefesh. So what is it? Is it damaging property, maybe? I mean, we could speculate. Let's go weiter. Yeah? So far, so good. Let's go. Miu kosher. Oh, miu kosher. Now, says Tosfos, but now I have another challenge. Back to the Gemara that we were just discussing, based on the Mishnah in Ohanos. Yes? You know what? Why am I saying it? Kobe, maybe you say it. You say it, Tosfos.
מיu kosher. גמרנו בפרק בין סויר המוירה, יוצא רוישי ein neugin boy. Dein doiche nefesh min penefesh.
Which is a quote from that Mishnah in Ohanos.
Yeah.
That what? Just translate it, explain it.
That if it's ready, his head's out,
Or,
we don't touch him because we're not choosing one nefesh over the other.
go on.
Avo lokoidem sheyotza roishay hachit
Hachayo. It means the midwife.
achayo poshetes yoda v'chosroy leivorim umitzia kedei lehatziles imoy. Okay, but before his head is out, the midwife,
Yeah.
she reaches in and she cuts him up and takes him out piece by piece.
Right.
To save the mother.
Oh. Keep going. That's the ratio of the Mishnah. Tosfos still in the middle of his question. Go on.
Okay.
Ki haigav.
Okay, Gavno. Ba'oive kechavim also kevan shehuzharu ala ha'uborim.
Finished. That is a question. Work it out. What's the question?
Why? There's a question on Kilo, like, why is it forbidden for an Ovid Kechavim?
No. Why it's forbidden? Because it's a pasuk. Shefech dam ha'adam ba'adam. Keep going. Remember this. I know because we jump from source to source. So let me just ground you. Let me just remind you. We are learning a Tosfos on a piece of Gemara in Sanhedrin that is discussing the idea that there is nothing that a Gentile cannot do and a Jew can do.
Yeah. So why are we allowed to do it?
We've discovered. So Tosfos has looked at it. So until now, his challenge was straight out abortion.
Yeah.
And on that, he has said, Tosfos got out of that challenge by saying, for a Gentile, true, it is forbidden. But for a Jew, listen carefully, this is the Lomdus in Tosfos. Tosfos' answer until now is, the only time you can challenge this principle is if you demonstrate that one is permitted versus prohibited. Mm-hmm. But if they are both prohibited, albeit at a different legislative level of severity, that doesn't challenge the principle. Mm-hmm. Okay? And that's how we got out of it. He said, by saying, but for a Jew, it's not going to be mutter. As long as, so therefore, he's re-established the equilibrium. They're both forbidden. Now he's going to show us. He's going further. He's digging further, Kobe, right? He's saying, I'm going to show you something which is explicitly mutar. So you can't wriggle out and say, it's not mutar. Yeah. And that is the Mishnah in Ohanos, which you just read, that when the kid is challenging the life of the mother, we cut him up. It's mutar. But for a Gentile, Tosfos is making a fascinating assumption. There's an assumption in this. What's Tosfos' assumption?
It's not mutter for a guy.
Correct. That what would be, let's picture a scenario, and by the way, I've mentioned this to you before, and I'm going to just remind it to you again. This can absolutely 1000% be relevant for any Jewish midwife or doctor. Because, you know any Jewish midwives? I know loads. If we're going to say that it is forbidden min ha-Torah for a Gentile to abort, pretty much for any reason, that's Tosfos' assumption, then a midwife would very possibly have to give up her job. She would not be allowed to do it because it's lifnei iver. Because you're performing something on behalf of whether there's how the agency works. It's not shlichus la'akum, it's you doing it for them. You are doing something on their behalf, something which for them is a capital offense. And it's a major, you should know, I'm just throwing it out there, we're not going to deal with it today, but I want to show you also how this is not just we're learning a Tosfos, which is theoretical, this is absolutely halacha l'maisa. And we're going to this is something that Tzitz Eliezer and others really deal with. You see? So Tosfos is making an assumption here. The Mishnah in Arlos, Mishnayos were written for Jews, generally speaking, unless it says Mefurish, right? So we would cut up that fetus. Tosfos says, for Akum, it's Osur. It's Osur. So there, says Tosfos, that is my challenge. Now I've got a really good challenge on this principle in the Gemara. Abortion in a case where the kid is challenging the viability, the life of the mother, right? I've got a really good challenge now. And you can't wriggle out of this one by saying, it's okay, it's sorry. No, it isn't.
So we need a good
that it's not permitted. Because here the Mishnah says clearly it is permitted. This is what you do. Reach in, cut it up. Whereas for an akum, no go. It's a great challenge, right?
So we have to find out the reason why it could be mutar for a Jew. Or the other way.
There are a few ways of addressing this.
Yeah,
and Tosfos is actually going to give us two answers. And I want you to appreciate the thought process and the lomdus, what Tosfos has done. It's a classic, it's a beautiful one line of Tosfos. You know what? Your turn. You read and translate. Okay. Read and translate the answer. I'll help you. And then we'll appreciate, there's two answers here, and then we'll appreciate the lomdus. There's a gulf between them, and there's an amazing thing going on here in Tosfos. From V'yesh Leimar, yeah. Everybody clear on the question?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
Well, no. You got to be 1,000% clear. We have a direct challenge to our Gemara. Right. I have discovered something, says Tosfos, which for a Jew is mutter 1,000%. Right? Mutter. Not only mutter, well, don't give the game away. It's mutter. And for a Gentile, says Tosfos, it's osa. And that is the scenario of a fetus who is a roidav. That's the challenge to the Gemara. V'yesh Leimar.
Dehanami be'Israel mitzvah kedei lehatzil.
Stop. That's the first answer. What's Tosfos' answer?
So there are those who say that also for an Israel there is a mitzvah to save. No.
Yeah. You've translated it perfectly.
But
now make sense of it.
I'm processing.
Process. You go for it. Take your time.
Why Nami?
That's very good. The Nami is actually a slight red herring here because it doesn't mean as well as a... Okay, I'll help you here. Yeah. The Nami in this context does not mean as well as a Gentile.
Right.
That's coming up later. The Nami in this phrase, but great, you're really thinking well. The Nami in this phrase means, it's another way of saying in English, we would say Tsumau. Sorry, I'm showing off. It's a word in German I learned recently. No, specifically, particularly, tzva. In other words, it means Tosfos is elevating this act from a... I'm giving the whole game away.
But no, it makes sense because...
Go on. What's the key? Go on. No. What's the key word here in this phrase? In this half line, what is the key word?
He's elevating from mutter to mitzvah, no?
Bingo.
Right.
Spot on. He's referring back to the beginning of the Tosfos. He's going back to the beginning of the Tosfos.
So now we can go back to the Shabbos thing.
Very good. Exactly. So
we're saving
spot on. Yeah. Exactly.
We're transforming it from a
That's right.
thing which would fall into the category.
Very good. Exactly. That is exactly what Tosfos is doing. Awesome. You both got it. You don't need me. Awesome. So like we said at the beginning of the Tosfos, Shabbos is an exception. We're not talking about something which is a mitzvah. Here there's a mitzvah of Hatzalah. It's not just, you were allowed to. Here is, you have an obligation of Hatzalah, of the mother. There's a Hatzalah involved. And by the way, I'm going to stop here just for 1 second and go back to that Rashi. Look at Rashi. When Rashi says, Lav nefeshu, v'niten lahoyrgai, Rashi adds, ulahatzil es imoy. Why does Rashi add those words? If it's not a nefesh, then why is the Hatzalah relevant? So even in that Rashi, I'm picking up. Do you hear me? In that Rashi there, if we learn Rashi, if we were to take a maximalist position in that Rashi, that Lav Nefeshu means it's garnished.
Yeah,
But
Doesn't seem so easy.
yeah, very good. It's lahatzil. There's a context here. Just by the way, again, you see every phrase in Rashi is so key.
he has Tosfos in mind, so to speak.
Well, he doesn't. He's that concept that there is Hatzalah going on over here.
Yeah.
Correct. Despite its lav nefeshu, but that doesn't mean willy-nilly we would just dispose of it as so much unwanted genetic material. There's a Hatzil, there's a Hatzalah context going on over here. Okay, back to Tosfos. Well done. You decoded the first answer, Tosfos. Now, next teretz. You did that one? Okay, go on. Yeah, go on.
ואפשר אפילו בעבד כוכבים שווה. So, but it's also possible that it's still allowed for עבד כוכבים.
Good. Says, what's Tosfos saying? It's a different answer. And these two answers are...
So there could be a possibility where עבד כוכבים would be also allowed, but just not for a mitzvah reason, or is that...
You go on, develop. First of all, so what is Tosfos as the thrust of his answer? You've got to talk a bit more, elaborate.
Okay, so
go back over the question and show how this half line deals with the question and how it deals with it. Go on.
The only way how we could have proven the statement of, or how we could make sense of the statement for one it is allowed, for one it is forbidden and the other one is allowed, would be to put it in the context, not in the context of
Mitzvah?
Not in the context of a mitzvah.
Right.
And
good.
Until here it was not a mitzvah, but
right.
Then said, okay,
so forget mitzvah. Tosfos is now saying, forget mitzvah. Leave mitzvah out of it. I have another way to resolve this problem.
This one is saying, okay, back from, we retreat from mitzvah again to something else.
Correct.
Because we're saying...
It's nothing to do with mitzvah. That was the first answer. This second answer is, he's challenging the very assumption the question was based on. I'm not going to say more than that. Come on, guys, it's there. Translate. It's there. What's Tosfos saying?
So,
do you want to? Maybe it's always worthwhile when you're doing these things, and this is the way I learn. I talk to myself. It's the only way I get intelligent conversation. Not quite. Sorry, I said that to my wife. Well, what I do is you've got to speak. When you learn, you talk out. And by the way, you should know Rabbi Elyashiv. It was a beautiful thing. There's a video you can get hold of on YouTube. It's the most... I stopped watching it because it gives me chaloshas. Rabbi Elyashiv used to get up at 2:30 every morning to start his Seder Limud. And he when he learned, because he was learning by himself, he spoke out. Somebody hid a video. Have you seen it? Half hour. Have you seen it? It's unbelievable. How first of all, it's just beautiful. It's just sublime. But then when he would learn, the way he would learn is he'd say, what will be if they, in Yiddish, he would say, what would be if they're going to come and ask me from this Ran you see like this? Everything was beforehand. He had been melabein the sugya. So that when they came and asked him, he didn't need to think it already. He'd worked it all through. And the way to do that, when you learn, even if you learn by yourself, when I learn by myself, I do a lot of learning by myself, I speak. Yeah. I speak it out. You force yourself to clarify. So go over the question again. Mm-hmm. Speak it out. Speak out the question and speak the answer. And I think it'll become very simple.
So...
The question was... Tosfos' question was... You gotta have that question before we go to the answer. Let's go over it again. Kobe, you want to do it? What's the question? You read it. You explained it. What is the question? The question is, guys. You know it. I know you know it. You said it and explained it. The question is, I've got a challenge on the principle in this Gemara. The Gemara over here says, this is the way I talk to myself. The Gemara says that there is nothing which a Gentile is not allowed to do, a Jew is allowed to do. We have a source, a mission in Ohalos, which flatly contradicts this, where the Mishnah says that if the mother is in difficulty before it's born, the midwife goes in and gets rid of the kid. Yeah. So that's mutter, that's for a Jew. Whereas for a Gentile, such a thing would be forbidden. Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a challenge to the Gemara. Answers Tosfos, ve'efsha, what's the answer?
That is because of a mitzvah,
no, that's the first answer. Forget that.
No, we're saying that it's just a gradation and not a one or nothing. That is it.
Again,
that is still lo shari, no?
If it's to saving a life, you feel no.
Forget. You're overthinking. You're being too complicated. I'm gonna tell it to you. I'm gonna tell it to you because it's you. I'm not asking you anything it's so simple you don't even realize what I'm asking. It's it needs an explanation, but this is what Tosfos says. Tosfos then challenges his own assumption. In my question, there was an assumption. There was a fact and an assumption. The fact is the Mishnah in Ohlus, which says very clearly that a Jew, kid is in threatening the life of the mother, you cut it up. And Tosfos went on to say, in his question, but the same thing for a Gentile would be forbidden. He then says in the answer, no, maybe that what I said in my question was wrong. It could well be that the same scenario with a Gentile is also permitted. Hence, no question. That's all he says. I'm sorry, it's really, Ve'efshar, let's just translate. Ve'efshar, he just challenges his own assumption. Now, he doesn't do it definitively. He's somewhat hesitant, but it's another possible approach to resolve the challenge, the question. Ve'efshar, and maybe, ta'afilu ba'ovid kechavim shari. It could be with an ovid kechavim, it's also shari, mutter. Fascinating the use of the word mutter as opposed to mitzvah in the first answer. Fine. But that's all he's done. He's just unpicked his question and by challenging the very assumption it was based on, by saying it could. I made an assumption in my question, and this is what we always need to do, by the way. Challenge all. What assumption lies always beneath the stuff that I'm saying, and maybe that's not right. You always have to rethink, and that's all he does. It's really simple as that. I'm sorry, I made it out to be so. Now, of course, we need to ask ourselves what are the differences between these two roots in Tosfos, etc., etc. But it's a beautiful Tosfos. It's a classic thought exercise. So what do we end up with from this Tosfos? Halacha l'maisa, we might end up with some challenging conclusions. Is there a mitzvah of Hatzalah for B'nai Noach? Is one question we could ask ourselves. Maybe it's just mutter. But that is pretty much the end of that Tosfos. Okay. Oh, well, I didn't think it would take that long. I thought we'd okay, fine. What we want to do now is we want to demonstrate possibly 5 different sources that would appear to go along with Shittas Rashi. Let's remind ourselves. What is Shittas Rashi? That a fetus, quote unquote, Lav nefesh. Very good. Lav nefesh. Okay, so let's go back to page. I forgot where it is. It's page 3. Page 3. Mm-hmm. Page 3. We have a Mishnah in the Gemara Arachin. We'll run through this very quickly. Okay, so this is Ha'isha sheyatze laharik. What would be if a woman is found guilty of a capital offense and she's being taken out to be killed, but she is pregnant? Ooh. What do we do? Yeah. Mishnah in Erechim. Let's have a look. Top of page 3, underlined. A few lines down. We do not wait for her to give birth. It's a Jewish woman, presumably. Yeah, she's Chayav Misa. We don't wait for her to give birth. We kill her, and with her, the child. Now, there is a whole technical thing that usually the fetus will die before the mother. But that's she mais bereisha and that. But we're gonna sidestep another whole sugya here, and we're gonna go straight to the what is your conclusion or question or what do you draw from that Mishnah based on what we've learned thus far? So what's your reaction to the Mishnah? Could we have your ears of vox pop? Yes. What do you think of this Mishnah?
A fetus is not a nefesh by itself. It's part of the woman.
Ooh, very good, very good. Part of the woman. Have you ever come across that phrase before? There's a phrase which is in Gemara Nivamas, which is relevant to Geirus and various other things. Ubar. Write it down anyway, because it's a good thing to have in your back pocket. It's a good phrase to know. Write it down in your notes. Ubar, ayin, vav, base, reish. At some point, actually, I really should set up a laptop so I can use sort of a whiteboard. I know it's doable. I should do it at some point, because it will be useful as we go on. Just a visual thing. Ubar. Yeah, say this. Go. Yerech. Yud Reish final Chaf. Third word, Imoy. Aleph Mem Vav. The fetus is the thigh of the mother, which is the halachic formulation of that the mother has a kidney, she has a heart, she has lungs, she has a fetus.
Just the thigh? I thought it's like something more.
Very good, very good. My body, that's okay, that's good. That's what having a proprietary interest in your own body is something we haven't even touched on yet.
We can say my thigh, my choice now.
Okay. Right. But the Gemara challenges this. Well, we're not quite finished yet, sorry. Says the Mishnah, however, what would be if they're about to take this woman out to be stoned, whatever, and she goes into labor? Now what? Do you think it changes anything? What's your thought?
So maybe it's like, I would say it's like...
What do you think?
It's like a suffix, or like a limbo state where you have to wait until something happens.
Well, one sec. Why would you say that? But don't just say, come on, we've learned a Mishnah. What would you say on the basis of the Mishnah in Arlas?
So it's, I mean...
What would you say on the basis of the Mishnah in Arlas?
It's between, it's in the mother or the head comes out.
Oh, very good. Very good. That is the delineation that we've seen.
Yeah.
So let me tell you that the Mishnah, look at the Lashon of the Mishnah here, don't cheat, just look at the few lines. Ha'isha sheyoshva al hamashper. Which in English we would say is, she's gone into labor, she's having contractions. The birth process has started, but the child is still very firmly...
Inside, yeah.
What would you say? How would you pass him?
I would go more towards life because it's like in the process of, I mean...
Facts don't care about your feelings.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, don't be.
Don't normally quote Ben Shapira in the Gemara shir, but okay. Mishnah and Alas, Ben Shapira. What would you say?
There's
What?
no reason to wait.
Thank you. I'm with him on this one. Absolutely. It's not Yotzar Roishai. Lav Nefeshu. Finished.
You can... Yeah.
Now let's look at the Mishnah. Next line. Ha'isha sheyosh vel hamashber mamtinin lo ad sheteiled. We wait until she gives birth. That's the right response. That's exactly the right response. Exactly. Shkoyach. Very good. And by the way, this is the language. Notice, this is the language. Mamtinin lo, ein mamtinin lo. The Rashi says ein mamtinin lo. Look at Rashi. Top right Rashi.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't need to do that yet. Okay, we'll come to that later. Read, it's your turn, I think. Read and translate the Rashi.
Ein mamtinin lo ad sheteled, elo hirgin vlodo
Yes.
imo dechad gufo.
Oh, what's Rashi saying? Rashi's explaining
You
the
kill
Mishnah.
her fetus.
Yes.
With her because it's one.
It's one goof. That's it. It's the thigh, etc. We'll do 2 lines of Gemara and then we'll have to leave it for today. Okay. Weiter. Let's do the Gemara. The Gemara now explains this a little bit. The Gemara, go to the Gemara. Gabby, you do it. First, the Gemara.
So Ha'isha, she... Yeah?
No, the Gemara. That's Masnissen. Next line down.
So
Shita.
Pshita gufa he.
Yeah, full stop.
Yeah, so
The Gemara. Yeah,
I
go
mean,
on.
it's Pshita that it's just a part of her body.
Yeah, of course we put it to death.
But-
It's her body. Gufa. Answers the Gemara. I'll do this bit before you. It's for you. It's a little bit more complicated. I'm happy for you to try, but we're just kind of out of time. Tomorrow we'll give you some more. Itzrich says the Gemara, and I'll tell you it's necessary, because Sol Kadat Chamin, I might have thought. We find from another context, there's a pasuk, there's a little parish in Mishpatim. What would be if 2 people are having a pub brawl, right? And one of them, Nebuch, hits somebody else's wife, and she, as a result of it, she loses her thing. There is monetary restitution. He has to pay. Kasha Yoshis ala Balo Isho, you have to pay. So you see that the husband would appear to have a proprietary financial interest in the unborn fetus, which is financial, it would appear. He has some sort of ownership rights of some sort. And therefore, says the Gemara, the Chiddush is not that we go and kill. The Chiddush is not vis-a-vis the mother or the fetus. The Chiddush is that I might have thought that the husband has a right to intervene here and say, whoa, you're damaging my property. Sorry to be crude. And I can't even talk about how literal this is or isn't, but that's what I might have thought. Kamash Malon. No, we still do. I'm going to leave you on that note. There's a lot to ask.